Trust me, I'm the Doctor.
Fear me. I've killed hundreds of Time Lords.
Fear me. I've killed all of them. I've been running my whole life. Now it's time for me to stop.
You killed all the Daleks.
Who do you think?
And now it's time for one last bow. Like all your other selves, 11's hour is over now. The clock is striking 12s.
The siege of Trenzalore is now begun.
The Time Lord has entered the trap.
Help him change the future. Do it!
Doctor is regenerating! Come and
Welcome back to the Nerdy Grail, and welcome back to the 4th video in this ranking every episode from every Doctor series. So in previous videos, I'm going backwards in terms of Doctors. So I started with the 15th Doctor played by Ncuti Gatwa, then I moved on to the 13th Doctor played by Jodie Whittaker. Then in the last video, I did a ranking of every 12th Doctor story played by Peter Capaldi. So if we continue down in this trend, as you can see behind me as well, I've got my entire 11th Doctor era Steelbook collection behind me, because if you've seen the thumbnail, you know that in today's video, I'm obviously going to be ranking every single 11th Doctor story from the Matt Smith era from 2010 with the 11th hour, all the way up to 2013's Christmas special, The Time of the Doctor. Now, the Matt Smith era is quite pinnacle for a lot of people. This is where a lot of people might have actually joined. So for many people, Matt Smith might have been their first Doctor. I mean, every Doctor is someone's first Doctor. But I know it's from the Matt Smith era onward is when Doctor Who became more worldwide and branched out a lot more. So the Matt Smith era means a lot to a lot of people. And I recently did a massive rewatch with my fiancée of the entire Matt Smith era. And if I was to sum up the Matt Smith era in one word, or a couple of words, to be honest, I would say whimsical, magical, and definitely fairy tale. It is one of the most different of all of New Who, if I'm perfectly honest. But let's waste no more time, jump straight into this tier list of me ranking every single 11th Doctor story. Okay, and here is my tier list ranking every 11th Doctor episode. You can see we've got all the 11th Doctor episodes down the bottom from the 11th hour to the Time of the Doctor. And I've got my categories with quotes similar to how I've done in the previous 3 videos. So top of the shop, we've got Hello, I'm the Doctor, basically run. Then we got Bow Ties Are Cool. So these are the good stories, but not fantastic, but they are good. Then we've got the okay stories. I like it when someone says it's bigger on the inside. I always look forward to that. Then the bad stories, they're not terrible, but I just don't find an awful lot of enjoyment with them. We've got The Name You Choose, It's Like a Promise You Make, He's the One Who Broke the Promise. And then finally, these are the bad stories, like the really bad stories that I really struggle to rewatch. We've got You Gave Me Hope, and Then You Took It Away. That's enough to make anyone dangerous. God knows what it will do to me. So let's just jump straight into this because we got a lot of stories to talk about. So first off, and you might think this is crazy, but I really, really like this as an opening story. The 11th hour is going straight into, hello, I'm the Doctor, basically run. I love it. It's a fantastic post-regeneration story, everything that you ask for, and it really does like almost a soft reboot of the soft reboot, because obviously in this one you've got the 11th Doctor who he loses the TARDIS because it's damaged post-regeneration. He loses his 9th and 10th Doctor Sonic Screwdriver, and he's wearing a battered, raggedy old version of the 10th Doctor's clothes, and I like that that's how he gets his little nickname from Amelia Pond, his new companion, who calls him the Raggedy Doctor just because his outfit's damaged from the previous story. And I think that is really, really fun. Like I said, the 11th Doctor's era is definitely whimsical, definitely got a lot of fairy tale, and you can see that in abundance in this story. I think the villain of Prisoner Zero was an interesting concept and a really good design. You know, sets up a good story arc of the cracks in time, which come up later on, and last from this story all the way to the time of the Doctor. And I just think the pacing is really well done, and it introduces you to Amelia or Amy and Rory really, really well, and Matt Smith's on top form in this story, so easily hands down for me, definitely gets top of the shop. Then we got The Beast Below, which I think is a bit more of a letdown. I think it's an okay story. You know, I like all the, you know, the far future, all the, you know, different towns and cities and continents and stuff are all floating on these like spaceships which are controlled by these big star whale creatures. And then, you know, in order to keep everyone in check, keep everyone from rebelling, they have like a political system where they make you forget everything that you've learned. You forget that there's a creature that's being punished and tortured in order to keep you afloat. They got these really cool creatures like I think they're the Smilers or the Winders, something along those lines. They're creepy. I just wish they were used a lot more. It's an alright story, don't get me wrong, with some good messaging as well. Yeah, it's okay, but it's just, I think it could have, you know, been done a little bit better. Victory of the Daleks. Now, I actually like Victory of the Daleks, so for me, that's a good story. It's not an amazing story, but I think it's definitely better than The Beast Below. I like that basically at the time, Power of the Daleks from the Patrick Troughton era was still lost. And I'm fairly certain Stephen Moffat said this was him trying to pay homage to it, because it's all set during World War II, you know, there's a Dalek that's pretending to be a creation of a human who we find out is actually a robot, Professor Bracewell, and Winston Churchill's using the Daleks in order to try and win the war. They call the Daleks the Ironside, which is a fantastic name and also a fantastic design for a Dalek, with all the World War II gear, the camo look. I love it. I think it's brilliant. And they introduce you to the Paradigm Daleks, these gigantic new design Daleks, which are multicoloured. Obviously, they don't end up getting used anywhere near as much, so that was a shame. But I quite like it. It's really, really fun, and it's just a good little Dalek story. And I just like, you can really see the rage of the Doctor in this story. That his hatred for the Daleks is still strong in this story, and I really, really like that. The Doctor versus the Dalek, when he's trying to convince everyone that the Dalek is evil, is one of the best scenes of this series, and I think it's brilliant. And also you get the thoughts of that Amy actually doesn't know who the Daleks are when she's supposed to, because of the stuff that happened in Stolen Earth and Journey's End in the 10th Doctor's era. So there's extra mysteries being put into play here. Then you've got Time of the Angels. I also think this story is a good story. Part 1 is really intense. You know, you get reintroduced to River Song, who we haven't seen since The Silence in the Library, but she's younger because there's, you know, the Doctor doesn't meet her quite in the right order. And they are sent on this mission to find like this lost crew, to investigate this damaged ship, and they find out that the Weeping Angels are running havoc in this cave system, and it's really, really good. They also introduced a new concept for the Weeping Angels, whereby, you know, an image of an angel is itself an angel, so they have an angel that's trapped in like a cell or in a room, and they're watching it on a monitor screen, but if you turn your back, it can still come at you. It's really, really intense, and the Weeping Angels are a lot more ferocious in this story as well. Apparently, they actually, rather than just sap you back in time, these ones are a bit more feral and will like snap your necks and kill you and stuff. So it's really intense. And also, Amy's getting possessed by a Weeping Angel in the story as well, so we got some extra stakes. I think it's really good, and I quite like the cliffhanger as well. Then we got Flesh and Stone. This one's a little bit worse. Takes a little bit of a step back. It's still okay though, and I still have good fun with it. Continues the plot line of Amy being possessed by a Weeping Angel, because she's like counting down all through the story, and then she reaches 1 and she has to keep her eyes shut, because otherwise if she opens her eyes, the angel's going to possess her. And I think that's really, really good and interesting. But the Weeping Angels are a bit dirty in this story, because obviously the scary factor of the Weeping Angels is that you don't see them move. But unfortunately there's a scene where you get to see a Weeping Angel move, and it takes the fear factor away. It all takes place in this like weird forest area on the ship, you know, which is, you know, interesting. You know, angels hiding in the trees. You know, you really get to see the effects of the crack, which is still following the Doctor and Amy. That actually it's like a big time fissure, and it can erode and erase things from time, which is chasing after the Doctor and co. The Weeping Angels are actually running away from it as well. It's really, really interesting. You see, they really seed the plot lines all through the series, and I quite like it. It's an okay story, but not as good as part 1. Vampires of Venice. For me, I think this is also just an okay story. It's nothing spectacular. I know some people might put it lower, some people might put it higher. It's just a bit of fun. The Doctor takes Rory and Amy on a date to Venice because in the last episode, in the Angel one, Amy tries to hit on the Doctor, and the Doctor's a bit like cautious about that, you know, saying that you're about to get married, you know, you have a boyfriend, a fiance, this, that, and the other. And so basically goes to Rory and says, look, your girlfriend tried to sleep with me. You're coming with me through time and space to keep her in check. That's pretty much what he does. And it's basically like he takes them to Venice on a date and they just get entangled up with this weird vampire mystery in Venice where these girls are getting taken to this school. Some are getting fed to these fish creatures and some are getting turned into these fish creatures which look a bit like vampires because they got sharp teeth and they can't be in the sunlight directly. Really interesting concept for a story. Just I think the pacing's a bit off and it does drag at times. So it's okay though, don't get me wrong. Amy's Choice, I think this is a good story. I quite like this one. And I'm of the belief that the Dream Lord should have been the Valiard because he's pretty much the evil side of the Doctor who's, you know, trying to force the Doctor into basically becoming trapped in this like wish world if we're thinking about the Ncuti Gatwa era. So basically the Doctor meets up with Amy and Rory, who are now, they're a fully married couple. Amy's pregnant, but something seems off because then they wake up and they're on the TARDIS and Amy's not pregnant. And they find out that there's this little bit of like weird particle dust that slipped into the console and caused them to have dream states that were attacking them. And basically it's like, which world's the real world? They got to choose which world they want. And there's a threat in each world. Like there's killer old people in the old town where Amy's pregnant. And then there's a cold star that the TARDIS is going to fly into in the TARDIS world. It's like really weird Inception levels of threat here. And the Dream Lord's a really cool one, played by Toby Jones, who does a fantastic job, might I add. I quite like it. I think it's a good story and a fun story. And yeah, Amy has to choose between her love for Rory or her love for the Doctor. And she does choose Rory, so, you know, as it should be. Then you've got The Hungry Earth. I think Hungry Earth is a good story. I generally do think it's a good story and I really like it. It sets up the tension. You know, they go to this old Welsh valley where they're drilling down under the ground. They disturb something under the ground and what they've disturbed comes back up to get them. It turns out to be the Silurians, nicely redesigned. Well, I say nicely redesigned. I prefer the classic series design. They're a cool design, especially with the masks on, but with the masks off, I'm not as keen. But it's really good at setting tension in this story. And the Doctor has to work with Rory a lot because Amy gets kidnapped halfway through the story. It is really, really good. And the cast of characters you got are really are likeable but irritable at the same time. You know, you got a child, you got a mother, you know, you got a father of the mother who's old, who's been working on the mines for a while. It's really, really interesting. I quite like it. But similar to the previous two-parter, part two does go a bit more downhill. And for me, I think it's just okay. You know, it's a typical Silurian story, you know, can't we share the planet? And that's sort of what it is. A bit of like democracy, talking things through. But at the end of this story, Rory does get erased because the Crack is still following the Doctor, Amy and Rory. And unfortunately, while defending Amy against the Silurian attack, Rory does get shot, lands in direct contact with the Crack and gets erased from time. And you've got a mini plotline of that going forward for the next couple of episodes. It's an okay story, though. Don't get me wrong. Vincent and the Doctor. See, I'm of two minds of Vincent and the Doctor. For me, this is probably going to annoy some people. I just think it's okay. I know some people are going to freak at that because I know that this story is regarded as really high for a lot of people. But if I'm honest, I do find it a bit boring. I love learning, you know, teaching you more about the life of Vincent van Gogh and, you know, his trauma and everything that happened to him. I think is really, really good, you know. But what saves this story for me that I do like is I like the Doctor taking Vincent to the future so that he can see that his works of art and his name is still going strong today. I think it's beautiful. It is a fantastic and emotional scene. And that's for me why I can't put it in bad. Otherwise I might have put it in bad. But that scene is too beautiful, too poetic, too lovely to deny it from being an okay. I like the idea that there's an invisible creature, which is interesting. The contraption the Doctor builds in order to locate it is a bit odd. But yeah, I don't like this story as much as other people do, if I'm being honest. The Lodger, Now, this one for me is a guilty pleasure. I think it's a good story merely because of how fun it is. James Corden's first of 2 appearances in Doctor Who. The Doctor gets thrown out of the TARDIS and has to basically live life like a normal human in order to investigate an alien threat that the TARDIS had located for him and Amy, while Amy's trapped in the TARDIS trying to work out how to land. And so he lives with James Corden. He goes to work with him, he plays football with him, he tries to give him relationship advice, and it turns out that the Doctor's almost better at everything than him. It's really funny, the banter that they have together. All the while, there's a threat living upstairs in James Corden's house, which he finds weird because he technically doesn't have an upstairs. And you find out this secret alien time machine TARDIS spaceship that's attached itself to the house and is trying to find a pilot in order to escape. It's interesting, and like I said, the banter between Matt Smith and James Corden in this is fantastic. I love it. It's a guilty pleasure, a bit like in my Peter Capaldi episode where I like Robots of Sherwood for the banter. The Pandorica opens is going up here in Hello, I'm the Doctor, basically run, top of the shop. Fantastic story. I really wish they continued the concept of this story into the next part, because then it would have been done brilliantly. Because, you got the Doctor who's trying to search for the Pandorica. He bumps into River Song again. They go to Stonehenge. They discover a secret tomb where the Pandorica's being held. And then you've got all the villains from the Doctor's past coming after this Pandora's box, wondering what's inside, this evil threat that's the most powerful thing in all of reality that's been locked in that box. You got the Cybermen, the Daleks, the Sontarans, the Jadoon, the Silurians, the pilot fish from Christmas Invasion, the Sycorax. Autons return in a big way. We find out that Rory returns in this story as a Centurion who's actually an Auton in disguise. Really, really interesting. I think it's brilliant. And the cliffhanger where Rory as an Auton is taken over briefly, shoots Amy, so Amy's dead, Rory's holding her in his arms, River's trapped in the TARDIS, a TARDIS that's exploding. The Doctor, we find out, is actually the big threat to the universe and needs to be locked in the box because it's actually a prison. And all the aliens have teamed up as an alliance to shove the Doctor in the box. It's unbelievable. And it zooms out to show all the planets in the solar system burning up and dying. Massive, major threat and cliffhanger. Fantastic. And I was looking forward to next week for the next part, to see all these villains still trying to work together to keep the Doctor locked away. But that doesn't happen. And so for that reason, The Big Bang is the first story in the Matt Smith era to go down below okay for me, because it was such a disappointing finale episode compared to part 1 that it was such a major shift in enjoyment for me. It's so timey-wimey and confusing, the Doctor jumping around in different points in time. You get really lost. It all takes place in a museum. There's one stone Dalek. That's all it is. It's too confusing and weird. I'm not a big fan of it. And we find out that the TARDIS is at the centre of the explosion, causing the Big Bang, causing the time loop, causing the destruction of the universe. We find out the reason the Doctor's locked in the box because everyone thinks he's the only one who can pilot the TARDIS. So if you lock him away, then the TARDIS will never explode, but that turns out not to be the case. It's just weird. But one nice thing is, at the end of this story, Amy and Rory do finally get married, and so they're a married couple for the rest of the era that they're in. But yeah, it's not the best. Christmas Carol is an okay Christmas special for me. It's nothing spectacular. It's nice, a nice little take on Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol is good. Futuristic aspects to it. All about the, our main Scrooge-like character is sort of, he's nasty because he fell in love with this girl who he keeps in deep freeze down the bottom. And he goes on adventures with her every Christmas until she is down to her last night, and he's nasty because her family want to see her again, but he can't release her, because if he releases her, then she will die. It is quite sweet, if I'm perfectly honest. I quite like it, but it's nothing spectacular, nothing that blows you away. And meanwhile, Amy and Rory are up on a spaceship having their honeymoon, which is currently lost in this fog and is crashing, and the Doctor needs to try and save them. Then you move on to Series 6 with The Impossible Astronaut. Series 6 for me is a bit of a downer for the Matt Smith era. And for me, The Impossible Astronaut is just okay. It's just an okay story. I like the silence; they're cool, and it's from Series 6, where Matt Cicero really branched out to like a US audience and more as well. This concept of the silence, creatures that once you see them and then turn away, you forget that they are there, is good. And it's all about, obviously, first man on the moon, that sort of thing, the moon landing. Yeah, it's all right. Don't get me wrong. It's an all right story. They do the new plot thread for Series 6 is that the Doctor's killed by this mysterious astronaut and they need to find out who that is, why it happens, and can they prevent it. I don't think starting the series with the death of your main character is a good idea when you know that they're not going to. I know, obviously, the whole point is you try to find out how, and it's the big mystery, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of that, personally. And Day of the Moon, for me, is on the same level as Part 1. They're both interchangeable for me. It just continues on. But yeah. Then you got Curse of the Black Spot. For me, I'm not a big fan of it. I like the concept of, you know, this ancient siren who comes to people when they're hurt, takes them. She's like actually not an evil siren. She's like a medical doctor nurse character who, if, you know, one of the pirates got injured, they got a cut or I don't know, or choked on something, I don't know, just any form of injury, she would take them away to this like almost parallel dimension and treat them and keep them alive, you know. So it's quite sweet, but also at the same time it's a bit it was all right. Visually it's quite nice, and I like that when she's feeling threatened she turns bright red as opposed to the, you know, the nice bluey green natural color. I think that's pretty cool. The characters are okay. You really see the relationship of the Doctor, Amy and Rory start to flourish a lot more. They build a better bond in Series 6, I will say. But yeah, overall, it's not the best story, if I'm honest. I don't like to rewatch it very often. However, The Doctor's Wife is going straight up here. I love The Doctor's Wife. Very dark, very intense, and something that we've kind of been interested about for a very long time. You know, like the Doctor always talks to the TARDIS, always describes the TARDIS as like, you know, in the classic series, calling the TARDIS old thing, old girl, or, you know, that sort of thing. And this story actually gives you something, you know, more meat to that. And, you know, the Doctor lands somewhere from getting a call from supposedly a Time Lord in distress. The Doctor can't believe it, so he goes to the edge of the universe to find it, to track the message down. But and what happens is this like ancient being planet known as House kicks the TARDIS out, TARDIS consciousness out, and invades the TARDIS himself to steal the TARDIS in order to get back to their proper universe. And so you get the TARDIS going into a human body, well, not a human body, but like a flesh body. And so the TARDIS becomes, you know, proper living being that can talk to the Doctor, so the Doctor can actually interact. And I think that's really, really cool. There's an Ood in this story, because why not? Bring back an Ood. Quite a menacing Ood, I quite like it. And you get Amy and Rory at the end of the story trapped in the TARDIS, which is possessed by this creature called House, who's like tormenting them, and it's really visually scary and terrifying. Randomly, you get the return of the 9th and 10th Doctor's TARDIS console room, because why not? I mean, it is fair enough. But you really see the Doctor in proper anger and distress in the story, and I like it. Because it turns out that the message was a trap, a lure. It was previous Time Lords who have arrived and then been taken over and killed by House, and he's kept like their cries in these little boxes. So it was a trap to lure the Doctor in. But yeah, interesting. I'm going to put the next two straight up, because if you've seen my ranking of every modern Doctor Who story, you know my opinions on the next story. So I'm going to put them straight up here. So both Flesh and Stone and The Almost People two-parter, the Doppelganger two-parter, I think are brilliant. It's like one of my favourite Matt Smith stories of all time. I love a good doppelganger story. Anyone who knows me knows I love a doppelganger. Like Enemy of the World with Patrick Troughton, Meglos with Tom Baker, I've got a real soft spot for. I just love a good doppelganger. And Rebel Flesh and Almost People is no different. They do it in a great way, really question your morality, because you're supposed to side with the normal human people, and then the flesh people are supposed to be the antagonists and villains, but they really make you see both sides of the argument and make you feel for the flesh doppelgangers, you know, that they are people too with the same memories and feelings. I mean, by the end of the episode, most of the doppelgangers are the ones that are still around as opposed to the normal people, and you get Amy being put to the test in this as well, because there's a doppelganger doctor and she thinks she knows the doctor, but the doctor tests her to see what she's like with a doppelganger, and we find out that actually the doctor that she's been close to is the doppelganger one, and she's been neglecting the normal doctor, thinking that the doppelganger is the normal doctor. So it's quite good. There's also another subplot in this series as well, apart from the Doctor's death, is all through the series so far, this woman with an eye patch has been coming to Amy, only Amy, checking in on her, you know, telling her weird stuff like push and just giving her a smile and checking in on her. And we find out in this story that's because Amy is actually a flesh doppelganger, and she's not actually been with the Doctor and Rory all series. She's somewhere else because she's actually pregnant with a baby, which we'll find out in the next story, which is A Good Man Goes to War, which for me is just okay. I'm not huge on A Good Man Goes to War, if I'm perfectly honest. I like elements of it, but then there's other elements that bore me. I like the Doctor's rage and anger. You get to see the lengths he'll go to protect his friends, which is great. This story also introduces you to the Paternoster gang of Vastra, Jenny, Strax, who are much different in this story because they're just plucked from different time periods at this point, and then they meet, mash together, and then they become, you know, the characters that we know and love of Vastra, Jenny, and Strax. Really, really interesting. The reveal of River's song, of who she actually is, happens in the story. You find out that she's the daughter of Amy and Rory, which is really, really interesting. And then the hunt for Melody Pond, the hunt for River Song continues in this story as well. I quite like it. It's not bad, but it's nothing spectacular. Let's Kill Hitler. I'm not a fan of Let's Kill Hitler, and I don't think a lot of people really are. It's supposed to be like a fun, weird, quirky little story that continues the hunt for Melody Pond, who they find, who then we find out that Melody Pond is actually a Time Lord as well, and so regenerates into River Song. So River Song, obviously being Amy and Rory's daughter, it's absolutely mental. And the whole plot is just Melody wants to go back in time to kill Hitler, pretty much, is all she wants to do. It's weird, it's wacky. You're also introduced to this, like, I can't remember what they call it, but it's this like weird robot with little mini people inside that it can turn into anything, and they go to people when they're about to die or when they're about to do something that impacts history, and depending on whether they're a good or bad person, they'll either, you know, end their life early or not, which becomes relevant towards the end of the series as well. Not a huge fan of Let's Kill Hitler though, if I'm honest. Night Terrors I actually quite like. I think it's a good story for me personally. I like the scariness of the dolls in the dollhouse. You know, it is very, very creepy, very, very good atmosphere. And the relationship the Doctor has with the main dad character, who's called in a doctor, someone to help him with his son, who he's struggling with, doesn't understand why he's scared of everything. It's quite sweet, and he builds a bond because we find out that actually the son is not his real son. It's actually this weird alien creature who like adopted his father almost. It is quite sweet and nice, and I quite like it. And I like the claustrophobic feel of the episode. I think it's done really, really well. The Girl Who Waited is going up here. I really like The Girl Who Waited. It's a Dr. Light-esque story because they go to this like spa retreat place which is deadly to Time Lords, so the Doctor has to stay in the TARDIS. Amy, the Doctor and Rory get separated in 2 different time periods, so the Doctor sends Rory out to go investigate what happened to Amy, and he stumbles across Amy, who's apparently been trapped there for many, many years and is now elderly and now hates the Doctor for abandoning her. And so Rory has to try and convince her to come back with him and help him make sure Amy never gets stuck there in the first place. And I think it's done really, really well. Really hits you in the feels here. Really emotional. Very sad. I love it. Fantastic story. And a great concept as well. Then we've got Closing Time, which I think is just okay. It's just an okay story. You know, this big hotel where everyone's got a room, and your fears are locked in these hotel rooms. You know, it's your biggest fear. It's like Amy, I think, has a room which is full of weeping angels. We find out that the Doctor's room, we don't find out in the story what the Doctor's room is, but we find out later that it's the Crack in Time. But everyone's got something they're scared of, which I quite like that. And this big Minotaur creature that in order to get out of the hotel, get out of the fear, you've got to like worship him. And then he'll come for you and then release you from your pain. It's interesting concept, and also Amy and Rory partly leave at the end of this story. They do like a mini departure, but that obviously gets cancelled a little bit later on. Moving on, we've then got Closing Time, which is the second James Corden story, also featuring the Cybermen. I think this is okay as well. I don't think it's quite as good as The Lodger, but I think Closing Time does have elements that is fun. I like the new Cybermats. I think they look really, really interesting. The relationship between the Doctor and Craig is really, really good. I just think that the Cybermen weren't really used to their full potential. They're scavengers. They're damaged. And they're just basically trying to get free and leave Earth, really. It's silly. And they get defeated by love as well, which I know a lot of people that's what they criticise the story for, is that they get defeated via love. And I'm like, yeah, that's not right for the Cybermen. It's an okay story, don't get me wrong. Craig has now got his own proper house now. He's dating Sophie, the girl from the previous story. He's got a kid named Alfie, who is otherwise known as Stormageddon, Dark Lord of all, so the Doctor can speak baby. I think it's really, really good and fun. I love that all through the story is teased that the Doctor and Craig are a couple, and I think that's funny. We've got our first story that is going right down in the bottom tier. The finale of Series 6 for me is an absolute disgrace and an absolute mess of a story. And to be perfectly honest, in my head, could I tell you what the whole plot was? Not really, because it really just doesn't interest me at all. It is just an absolute mess. And this is the problem with the start of your series being like, right, the death of the Doctor, and we got to figure out what happens. It's too predictable, too obvious, and just goes nowhere, and is so jumbled, timey-wimey and weird. Don't like it at all. Easily, hands down, going towards the bottom of the list. The Doctor and the Widow and the Wardrobe, I actually like a little bit more than A Christmas Carol. I know a lot of people are going to think, whoa, really? Doctor, Widow and the Wardrobe is a good story? Yeah, I quite like it. I like the concept, and I like the Doctor's relationship with the family that he's with as well. You know, they've lost their father due to the war, and they're struggling to cope with their first Christmas apart from him. Well, the mother is anyway, because she's kept the father's death hidden from them. And so you've got that tension all the way through it. And the Doctor obviously revealing the truth by the end. But the Doctor does a really sweet thing and it turns out that they end up guiding the father home, who does end up returning alive and well, which is really, really sweet. Nice Christmas miracle. Beautiful, and I really, really like it. And also a brief mention of Androzani in this story as well. And you know my thoughts on the case of Androzani, so anything Androzani is going to get a tick from me. Series 7, Asylum of the Daleks, is going down here. Had such promise to be such a good story. We were promised and we were teased Daleks from all eras of the show. Did we get that? No, we got a tiny glimpse here and there, like the Special Weapons Dalek from Remembrance is hidden in the background. There's one of the Emperor's Guards from Evil of the Daleks hidden away. Most of them are just your bronze New Who Daleks from New Who, really. And then there's a scene where the Doctor goes down into the aspect of the asylum planet, because the Daleks have kidnapped Amy, Rory and the Doctor to go to this asylum planet and destroy all the Daleks that have gone wrong, basically, because they're too scared to go down themselves. Oh, and also Amy and Rory are divorced. They're going through a divorce because that's relevant. It's not. It's what spoils the story. And so they go down to that, and they go to the intensive care unit, and this is where the Daleks that have faced the Doctor on previous adventures are, and they list planets like Spyridon and Exelon, classic stories, but the Daleks are designed like the bronze modern ones. They should have used the classic series ones, and that annoys me. This story also introduces Jenna Coleman to the series, who plays a character called Oswin Oswald, who we think is someone who was on a space exploration, got shot down and is trapped in the asylum, and the Doctor has to save her. But it turns out she's actually a Dalek and has been converted. But she's got a bigger role to play later on in the series. Oh, and like I said, Amy and Rory are divorced, and they're arguing all through the story, and it's all about the Doctor trying to fix their marriage. Which does get fixed in the same story. It's stupid, it's pointless, and distracts from the whole Dalek plot. I hate it. Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. I'm not a huge fan of this one either, if I'm perfectly honest. I know a lot of people might hate me for that. It's not great. It's quite bad. There's elements of fun to it. Like, I like that we get to meet Rory's dad, who comes along for the ride. I think he's got a good relationship with the cast. You got like Queen Nefertiti's in this as well. Loads of weird random characters just thrown in just for the sake of it. Dinosaurs on a spaceship. Yeah, there's nothing really to it. It's on a collision course, this big spaceship with Earth, and the Doctor's sent up to try and stop it. And if he can't stop it, then the people down below, UNIT and all, have permission to shoot it down. So the Doctor's on a bit of a time limit, really. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. A Town Called Mercy, I think, is okay. That's not bad. Wild Wild West style story, I think, is pretty good. Pretty enjoyable. The big gunslinger character is really cool, who's on the hunt for all the people who created him, who tormented him, and I think that's done really well. You get to see the Doctor, showing his anger and rage for constantly letting bad people live, because of his mercy, and he's sick and tired of it. He wants people to get what they deserve, and so Amy has to try and snap him out of it. The Doctor becomes the sheriff of this new town as well, and has to protect people. Yeah, I think it's done really, really well, and it's quite a nice, fun little story. Nothing good or spectacular, but enjoyable all the same. Power of Three as well. Not a big fan of Power of Three. Yeah, the Doctor, Amy and Rory, they're back home now, because all through Series 7 so far, the Doctor's been going back and forth, picking Amy and Rory up after closing time. The God Complex, where they have their own house now. So the Doctor goes back. This story also introduces you to Kate Lethbridge-Stewart. Brilliant. Love Kate. I love Kate. So this is the story where she starts. And it's quite nice to see her. But yeah, there's these little cubes that have just arrived. You can't destroy them, can't throw them away, so people just use them as souvenirs. Eventually they open and they start like suffocating people, and so the Doctor's got to try and stop it. I can't even say it's okay. It's just a bit random and weird, if I'm honest. Not a huge fan of it. Angels Take Manhattan, though, I quite like Angels Take Manhattan, so that's going up here in Bow Ties Are Cool, so in the good category. The last story for Amy and Rory. River Song returns again one last time. Well, not one last time, she does come back again, but, as a more of a regular character. And I quite like, even though there's some stuff that makes no sense, like the Weeping Angels taking over the Statue of Liberty, and that's actually a statue, and somehow makes it into the centre of New York, makes no sense, in the city that never sleeps. But the emotional goodbye of Amy and Rory is done phenomenally, and I love, again, that Amy chooses Rory over the Doctor, because the Doctor tries to convince Amy to stay with him and not go after Rory, but she refuses because of her love for her husband, and that's how it should be, and that is amazing. And it's fantastic, and I love it. It's gripping. Absolutely gripping. And the Weeping Angels are still scary in this story as well, because after Blink, they sort of went downhill a little bit, but I quite like the Angels Take Manhattan. The Snowmen is also going to surprise a few people as well, because I also think The Snowmen is a good Christmas special. It's actually, possibly my favourite Christmas special of the Matt Smith era, because I quite like The Snowmen. It's the return of the Great Intelligence. It also introduces you to Clara, so not Oswin Oswald, this is Clara Oswald, or Clara Oswin Oswald, who the Doctor recognises and is like, well, why are you here? How are you here? But we find out later on in the series how that happens. Like I said, the return of the Great Intelligence from the classic series, who possess these snowmen instead of the Yeti. Could have been a Yeti story, but snowmen, Christmas, makes sense, I guess. The return of Vastra, Jenny and Strax, who are now a team in Victorian London working together to solve crimes. And I just think it's fun. It's just a fun story. The Doctor's also showing off. He's living up on a cloud because he's upset over losing Amy and Rory, and so doesn't want to help people anymore, and so Clara has to try and snap him out of it. And the Doctor's got a new outfit. They changed the interior of the TARDIS as well. So it's a whole new era for the Matt Smith last half of his series. The Bells St. John, I think is okay. We get another version of Clara because the Snowmen version of Clara also dies. So then we get a third version, which is now Clara Oswald, who we stay with until she leaves at the end of Series 9 with the Peter Capaldi era. This one talks about, the dangers of the internet and people getting sucked into the internet, trapped forever, and we find out that there's a bigger plot line with the Great Intelligence still following the Doctor after the events of the Snowmen, and obviously the Doctor's trying to find out who Clara actually is. And also, Clara gets introduced via a phone call to the TARDIS, and Clara says that a mysterious woman gave her the number of the TARDIS, which in the Peter Capaldi era we find out is actually the Master, or Missy, the female version, who gave Clara the number. The Rings of Akaten, I also think is just an okay story. I know a lot of people really like it, mainly for the Doctor's big grand speech, which is a beautiful speech, don't get me wrong, but one good speech does not a good story make. It's a decent story, but not a fantastic one. You learn a little bit more about Clara's past in this story as well. But yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Something or nothing. Cold War. Now, this could be a little bit of mini bias by me, which to a degree it kind of is, but I also think it's a good story. Cold War, which is the return of the Ice Warriors. They haven't been in Doctor Who at this point since the Monster Apelladon with John Pertwee, and so this is their final big triumphant return. It's one Ice Warrior trapped in a submarine, claustrophobic environment, really intense. I love it. Fantastic. But this time they do a bit of a twist, where we find out that actually it's a big armour, that the iconic look of the Ice Warriors, and the creature inside comes out of the armour and attacks everyone and chases them around the submarine. And we find out that it's actually a lot more deadly outside the armour than in. So I really like that, and I think it's really good. Hyde, for me, is also just an okay story. You know, the Doctor and Clara going to this old abandoned house where they're doing like some ghost investigations. So it's your typical supernatural ghost story, but also turns into a bit of like Romeo and Juliet, because there's this other dimension where there's this creature that's trying to get back to their universe to find its lover, that sort of thing. It sort of ends abruptly, the story as well, where the Doctor just swoops in, saves the other half of the creature, and then boom, it's the end of the story. It's okay. It's interesting also to see the Doctor actually scared in this story as well. He generally is terrified. But yeah, I'm not huge on it. Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS is a weird one. If I'm honest, it's now probably a bad story. If you had asked me a couple of years ago, I would have said it would be either here or here. But upon rewatch, I didn't enjoy it anywhere near as much. Especially when you've got a concept of Clara's trapped in the TARDIS, the Doctor recruits some people to help find her, brings them into the TARDIS, and they have to journey through different areas of the TARDIS to find her. You'd think this is the time to show off, you know, for nostalgia purposes, show off different rooms of the TARDIS. You don't see anything. You just see narrow corridors and a library. And that's pretty much all you see. And it's like, what? You had such an opportunity here, and you wasted it. So I'm not a huge fan of it. Crimson Horror, I've grown to really like. I like Crimson Horror. I think it's a good story. Again, you know, Victorian era, the Doctor meeting up with Vash, Jenny and Strax. They investigate this factory, this sweet factory, as well as or Sweetville, sorry, is what they call it. Sweetville, this like little town, village, you know, run by this old woman and her proprietor called Mr. Sweet, who's this little weird creature that's like attached to her, feeding off her. And they get, you know, indoctrinated in, they get kidnapped, and Vash, Jenny and Strax have to go find the Doctor and Clara, save them, and work out what's going on. It's really, really good, really entertaining, really funny, and I love, again, the banter and the relationship between Vash, Jenny and Strax and the Doctor and Clara. Nightmare in Silver with the Cybermen. Upon rewatch, it wasn't as bad as I thought. I think it's okay. It's okay again. You know, we've got the new Moffat Cybermen now. They're a bit too overpowered. You know, that they can freeze time, they can move fast, they can detach their hands and heads. It gets a bit much and silly. I think the main thing that saves this story is the Doctor being both protagonist and antagonist. You've got the Doctor and Mr. Clever fighting for control over the Doctor's body through a game of chess. Basically, the premise of the story is the Doctor and Clara take Angie and Artie, the two kids that Clara's been babysitting through the course of the series, on a space journey because they're blackmailing Clara because they found out about her travels with the Doctor through the internet. They are annoying characters, and that's another reason why this is low on the list. I hate Angie and Artie. Nothing to do with, you know, the child actors, they're fine. But in this story, they are annoying, and I don't like them at all. Warwick Davis is also in this story as well. He does a really good character. He's like this emperor, but he calls himself Porridge. He's entertaining. The Sidemen are alright, but The Name of the Doctor, I think, is quite a good story. It's, you know, the start of like a trio of stories now. The Doctor trilogy, you know, got the Name, Day, and Time of the Doctor. It's Goodbye, Matt Smith, and in this story you got the Return of the Great Intelligence. Who's now controlling these characters called the Whisper Men, who are terrifying, absolutely scary. And they are basically trying to break into the Doctor's tomb in order to invade the Doctor's timeline and turn all of his victories into defeats. And I think it's done really, really well. Lots of nostalgia, lots of Easter eggs, lots of returning characters, and we get the reveal of the War Doctor at the end, played by John Hurt, this mysterious incarnation that the Doctor's tried to forget about because of the events of the Time War. Really good end to a series, and a good cliffhanger introducing a new incarnation, which we didn't know whether that incarnation was going to be a future incarnation, a past incarnation that we'll now get some stories for, or what. But it was really, really interesting. Day of the Doctor, the 50th anniversary. Right, okay. Right, this is... I feel like if I put it any lower than that, people would riot. I feel like that would be the case. Look, I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to be fair to it. I'm going to treat it more so as a Matt Smith story as opposed to the 50th anniversary. Look, and in terms of enjoyment, it is a great story. I can't deny it. Day of the Doctor is fab. It's not a good 50th anniversary. It's not a good celebration of the show, if I'm honest. It's definitely just a New Who celebration, because the whole point of it is about the Time War and the War Doctor. But as a story, it's fab, and I love it. You know, I love the return of the 10th Doctor. I love that Tom Baker returns as the curator. It's good seeing Billie Piper again, although now we know with Reality War what on earth's going on with Billie Piper. But seeing her as the Moment is brilliant. Seeing moments of the Time War is great. The Zygons return, and I love the Zygons. We introduced this character called Osgood, who's basically like a major Doctor Who fan who works for UNIT. And I think it's just great. It is such a fun story. Yeah, it is a good story. I can't deny it. It's fab. But it's just not a good 50th anniversary. Finally, Matt Smith's final story. I have a soft spot for it. I'm putting it up here. The Time of the Doctor is a good summation of the Matt Smith era. It comes to a close in the perfect way possible and solves all the mysteries that we wanted to know. Solves the mystery of Trenzalore. Solves the mystery of the cracks in time. You know, everything from the Matt Smith era is solved by Time of the Doctor, and that's how you do a Doctor's era, where you solve everything. And I think the regeneration is beautiful. He's got one of the best regeneration speeches of all time. He truly takes it in his stride, and it is done perfectly. Love Time of the Doctor. Great end to the Matt Smith era. And that is going to be it for my ranking every 11th Doctor episode. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, please like it by giving it a thumbs up and comment down below your thoughts on the Matt Smith era. And subscribe if you are new. But for now, this is the Nerdy Grail signing off. I hope you've had an amazing day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now, everyone.